This is Dr. Manny. Welcome to Asylum. Today's topic is gaining confidence, courage, and clarity through presence. Um, I titled it that because what I want to underscore is that you want to move. Hey, Nina, welcome to Asylum. So you want to move from a model where a way of being where you associate confidence with sort of this pressured aggression. Um, because a lot of times, instead of being afraid, we'll go into like either an angry mode or some sort of forceful mode, and that motivates us into motion. But that's more reactive because this is one of those cases where you've had an outside trigger, an outside cue, something that's not necessarily either something that's not necessarily meaningful to you, and you decide you create this, you raise the stakes in your imagination, and then you're like, oh, I got to move now, and you take action in a less deliberate way. You might not necessarily think through it. You might not take the time to form your intentions well. And that's the branch when something happens, you either have reactivity, which is something happens, your emotions get the best of you because an expectation was violated, and you react, fight, flight, freeze, faint, which I discussed in video 4. The alternative is becoming intentional, and the power that is in intentionality is that you go around these stories, these limiting stories. You don't get caught up in your head in that moment and in the emotions. This is when they say get out of your head, stop overthinking. This is what we're talking about. What we're talking about is becoming proactive. And in order to become proactive, you have to be present. The reason you have to be present is so that you can measure what's really happening. Hey, Patricia, welcome to Asylum. So the importance of presence is that you create a calm, focused, intentional, deliberate approach to your actions. You don't overreact. You don't, hey Todd, welcome to Asylum. So in the moment, you don't overreact necessarily to the fear. And remember in the last video, I discussed that fear results in a distortion of the outside stimuli. A lot of times you'll read, well, if you deep read about it, you'll find that certain mental illnesses are associated with misinterpreting stimuli, getting over aroused by it, being caught in the emotions, allowing the emotions to distort your sense of urgency, your sense of emergency, and taking action. Okay, so with that in mind, so some of these topics, the topics I want to look at, and I'm going to go through several of these because to me it's more important to be aware that these are all topics you already know. If you dig in your mind, you have some idea of what these words mean. But we become exponentially more effective when we look at what we mean by these words, what these concepts evoke in us, including the emotions associated with it. And then based off that, you're able to make more effective decisions, decisions that actually move you towards where you want to get, decisions that make you feel confidence, decisions that activate fear, or are in the context of fear, but that continue to move you forward. And that's the courage aspect of in the title. And decisions that provide you not only before you make the decision, that provides you with clarity about who you are, what matters to you, what sacrifices you're willing to make, what your priorities are, what your values are, what your strengths are, because you check all that in that moment before you choose. And initially it's slow, but the purpose of me stepping through it as deliberately in this segment is so that you can know what you're doing. You can know what's going on inside your mind when you're feeling these different ways. Now, I want to make sure that good to see you too, Patricia. Hey, Sheree, good to see you. Welcome to Asylum. Okay, so what I do sometimes is I slide this, the comments and stuff out the way so I can't see you guys at the time, but what it allows me to do is to stay in the schema that I'm trying to elaborate. That way I'm in more of a flow state as opposed to a, not a reactive, because I have a set of intentions set for when I see you guys come on, and they're pretty effective for me, but it allows me to do less task switching. Later on, I'll discuss how costly task switching, the process of taking one concept in your mind that you believe is relevant now and switching to the other. Big topic, but it doesn't really make sense in your mind until you get clear on what intentions are, how to set them, how to pay attention to them, how to use them to measure progress, how to use them to stay in positive emotional states. Okay? So, honing in, these are the topics I want to cover. I want to cover intention, presence, power, measuring progress, stuff like serendipity, sunk costs, and the whole idea of manifesting. Let me just go ahead and knock off what manifesting is, because a lot of times, some of these topics get an impractical spirituality to them. Spirituality is nurturing to the extent that you're able to use the ideas in it to empower you, to use it to choose actions, to use it to help you to move forward towards your goal. It's disempowering to the extent that it becomes something that you use in the service of ego. And I want to shout out to Yemi, because Yemi Dr. Yemi clarified this topic for me in a discussion we had, I'd say about 5 weeks ago, about the importance of being aware of whether you're using your higher power or your connection to your higher power in the service of ego or in the service of truth and self and intuition. Okay, all that kind of laid out. Manifesting is when, in the moment, you connect with the truth enough such that in the moment, again, an opportunity, instead of fear that is overwhelming, you see the danger, you see the truth in the danger, but you also see the uncertainty of the truth, which is the likelihood, the uncertainty of the danger, so the likelihood of the bad outcome. So this is risk assessment, and risk assessment cost analysis. In businesses, you'll put different labels to it, but in this case, we're talking about inside and private. We're talking about your own process to trust. So manifesting is when you get to the right state of mind so that you see reality as it is. Now, what happens when you see reality as it is and you stay in a calm state, an empowered state where you're action-oriented, is that the signs, the cues from the environment become personally meaningful. They each let you know, okay, it's time to take this action step towards my dream. What that does is it creates, again, that confidence. The confidence that you have the mental model, the confidence that you have the skills, the confidence that you will practice when it's time to practice. It creates more of an action. When you look at manifesting more as these opportunities that you created in your imagination, in your mind, that you dreamed up, that you thought through how they can lead to your solution. When you get to where, when those cues pop up in the environment, you are responsive instead of reactive, instead of overreacting and getting into your head, getting into stories about how you previously failed, getting worried about what it means, how fast the deadline is approaching. Manifesting is when, in that moment, because you, and in the metaphor that most of us use, because you've raised your frequency, because you've raised your vibration, because you're in a positive, empowered emotional state, you're able to, in that moment, with your full power, stay present. You don't disconnect from the moment because you're overwhelmed and the emotions get so much that you unplug. Yeah, you stay present to the truth. You feel the emotions in that moment. Those let you know how reactive you are. You manage your arousal based off the truth. You unplug from all the complex stories about how you feel before and all that, and you tune into what it is you really, what's going on. You tune into the intention you had going into the situation, and as a result of tuning into the intention in the situation, you remind yourself of the actions that you wanted to choose to take when that cue, when that environmental signal came up. Okay? Now, this is where courage emerges, because when the environmental signal comes up, you're going to have to search your mind when that model comes up and be honest with yourself about how you performed previously. Now, the opportunity here is to either freeze up and go into your head by focusing. If you're in a negative emotional state, you retrieve negative memories. If you're feeling bad in the moment, you assume that you're going to be, that it's because your body is predicting defeat. Your body is not putting all its energy into it. You're not going full because you're preparing yourself essentially for this defeat. Hey Goldwyn, welcome to Asylum. So, uh, the importance of presence is connecting to truth and seeing the opportunity in the moment instead of fading into stories that either numb you to the level of arousal you need to be at, distract you, make you misinterpret the situation, make you overreact, make you jump to conclusions and actions. Just all stuff that disconnects you from the truth and are not this manifesting, this connecting the truth. Um, so again, now when you get present, you're able to set clear intentions. What does a clear intention look like? A clear intention is when this happens in my environment. Basically, when I notice this, I'm going to do this. Okay? For example, one of my simplest ones, I like intentions. The most empowering intentions, the ones that you can practice with the most, are the ones you carry with you. And you always have your breath with you, and your breath is something that you can always tune into, reconnect to your body, and decide and notice in that moment how much control you have over your system. If so, you say to yourself, say the bigger intention is I'm going to go talk to. I'll use a standard example that everyone's familiar with at some level. I'm going to go talk to my boss about a raise. I'm going to make a case for getting a raise. When you go in talking to your boss about, when you set any intention, you want to go in with clear idea of what your strengths are, which tells you how you're bringing value to the situation, why I deserve this raise. So this means that you think back to your prior successes, other times you've negotiated successfully. You bring that feeling into your imagination. You remember the feeling of achievement, the gratitude of those situations. That's basically the purpose of being able to go into the past in your imagination. Is not to be anxious or to be stuck there in nostalgia, but to pull back the feeling of when you've accomplished similar things. You're doing two things at that time. You're pulling into your mind the most relevant models that you have, so your mind is in the right place, and you're also activating a state of mind associated with success and a higher outcome, and so your heart is in the right place, to use the system of ideas that we use. So your heart and mind are in the right place. You're in alignment. You have heart-mind coherence, heart-brain coherence, some people like to say. So when you, I'm going to make sure I'm approaching that right. So in the moment, in the environment, a cue is going to happen. Something's going to happen. You'll notice it. Initially, you'll notice it consciously. With practice, you'll come to notice it unconsciously. And instead of being reactive, your unconscious system picks up and it proactively does it. Now, the benefit of your system automatically doing the step is that you don't take all the energy of the whole cascade of preparing your body for an attack. You're not tense, you're relaxed, and you're focused. You're not pulling up other ideas. If you're pulling up prior ideas of failure, of setbacks, of shortcomings, and in your mind, you're living in the expectation. You're projecting the expectation instead of imagining the success. You're not being deliberate. You're not being intentional. You're not preparing your mind for success in that moment. You're not present. You're not connected to the truth. Okay? Because the truth is, in that moment, your truth that you can create is that success. Okay? And this is preparation. This is practice. It's also mental rehearsal. You're firing the circuits that go down the path of success so that when the environmental cue happens, you notice the cue because you're like, oh, this is a cue that is associated with me succeeding. Okay? So, for example, let's use asking your boss for a raise. Say the cues are going to be, instead of saying, okay, I'm going to be super anxious about going to my boss for a raise, and I heard that he fired such and such person when they asked for a raise. I heard that basically he turned the conversation about a raise into a performance evaluation. I heard that he used it as a time to bring up my last shortcoming, my last failure. I remember in this project I dropped the ball. None of that gets you to your success. What gets you to success is thinking about prior successes so your body feels in a successful way, so you show up present to the truth. And this is when you kind of want to set expectations so that you're aware. I expect when I walk in, because I'm in this confident state, and this is a Tony Robbins thing, you set expectations when you're at a higher vibration, higher frequency, when you're feeling powerful, when you're feeling aware of all your prior successes, and you have that momentum. When that's the narrative, that's the identity state you're in. Okay, so you walk in. So even beyond that, let's say you're going to go to your boss about a raise. You visualize it. How are you going to do it? Okay, tomorrow morning, I'm going to go in. I'll be sitting at my desk. I'm going to make sure I've gone to the bathroom, and so you set up the scenario. I will have gone to the bathroom. After going to the bathroom, I'll come back to my desk. I'm going to take a couple deep breaths. It might take 5 minutes. During that 5 minutes, I'm going to do some deep breathing. Might do a deep breathing in the bathroom. The stall is super private. No one's bothering you there. So I don't know if you want to be deep breathing in a bathroom. This is a different discussion. I'm messing with y'all. Okay, so you say to yourself, okay, the intention is to get a raise. How's it going to feel to get that raise? That's the bigger intention. How's it going to feel to get that raise? It's going to feel awesome. What are the things I'll be able to do? And you start to imagine why you value that raise. Well, I'll be less stressed about these bills. We'll be able to do 2 vacations a year. Or we'll just be able to get. Last time we went on vacation, when we did a cruise, we were on this floor, and I noticed that there was a nicer floor up above where they had better snacks or better seats next to the captain or whatever. These are the things that you want to pull up to inspire you, so that in that moment you're thinking about the positive outcome. You're imagining what achieving it looks like, feels like, smells like, tastes like. You're there, and you pull that into the present. This is gratitude. And this is Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich talks about this. In the moment when you're thinking about it, you don't want to be in a defeated state, because then your body is already practicing the defeat. Your subconscious mind is a prediction engine. It allocates energy based on the probability of a positive outcome. Okay? So, back to our scenario. You start off sitting at your desk. Now, sitting at your desk, you say to yourself, okay, I'm going to start running these scripts. I'm going to start rehearsing. What's the next thing I told myself I would do? I'll make sure my bladder is empty, and that I've gotten rid of anything that would be sending me a body sign. I'm going to do it after lunch, because I don't want my stomach grumbling, and I don't want to feel like low energy deprived when I'm, needing this burst of energy. So I'm going to sit at my desk. From my desk, I'm going to go run to the bathroom. I'm going to come back from the bathroom. This will be after lunch. Then my belly will feel full. I'm going to eat a high-protein lunch. These are all the steps that prepare you to be present. And I'm going to do the deep breathing. I'm going to get up from my desk. And you're visualizing this. You visualize it as a win. You imagine yourself standing up from your desk. And it's important to imagine it in the first person so you can actually see it. Because when you see it, your unconscious believes it. Okay? Now, the parts of it that you don't feel confident about doing, those are the parts where you want to address limiting beliefs. And I've talked about that in the past a ton of times. You want to notice when the self-doubt comes up, and you want to make sure you're not becoming reactive, not pulling back all the memories of all the people that have caused self-doubt, and now you're angry and you're going into this meeting in the scarcity mindset. Again, return to the intention, focus on the outcome, begin the rehearsal. Okay? So you begin sitting at your desk again. At your desk, you activate the intention. My intention is the larger intention. My intention is to get this raise. Okay? Why do I want this raise? What do I value? You activate your values. Okay? When have I had success in the past? So then you activate your strengths in this frame. So you're ready to come to the situation with your whole system, your whole body, your whole posture, your whole manner, your demeanor, your language, your entire state of mind is in that moment. It's present, it's confident, it's predicting a positive outcome, and as such, you're showing up fully and swinging through the punch, to mix metaphors. You're showing up ready to full court press. You're showing up ready to measure progress along the way and reward yourself. So you keep fueling yourself, you keep motivating yourself, you keep letting yourself know that we're still allocating this energy. Okay? So now, you're sitting at the desk. You've already gone to the bathroom, emptied out bladder, emptied out. Your whole GI tract is fantastically clean. You had lunch, so you're energized. You slept well the night before, so you're well rested. You notice these things. You're like, yeah, I do feel well rested. I feel good. My imagination is crisp. My willpower is full because During lunch, I rested, I got away from the job, I walked around, whatever you did. So now you're sitting at your desk, you want to connect with that state, you want to feel your most powerful, you want to feel the gratitude of having accomplished the vision, which is gotten the raise. Okay? You want to focus on that idea so clearly that it activates, your mind pulls up that whole architecture because your mind knows that it is true. This is that moment. This is the opportunity. Get your fuel ready. Okay? So you stand up from your desk and you visualize this. You imagine yourself standing up from your desk and you say to yourself, okay, well, what if my legs are wobbly? Well, if my legs are wobbly, and these are called distraction intentions. You use these intentions so that you continue to be prepared for the moment and you reward yourself. You reward yourself for actually being nervous and anxious. And the way you reward yourself for being nervous and anxious is by reframing it. You're like, ooh, okay, I noticed that I'm nervous and anxious. Well, what does that look like? Well, my breathing is funny, my stomach's a little tight. Well, I also feel that way when I'm on a roller coaster. So when you know the outcome, when you imagine the outcome as done, you have gratitude and you detach from the outcome. You know the outcome won't make or break you because you trust your future self to not be overly critical when you have setbacks. When you create this habit of positive self-talk through the whole process, noticing when negative self-talk takes you off towards reactivity, drains some of your energy so you show up less than fully, then you're able to redirect, reframe, regather your energy. Possibly you get to the door and you realize that you don't know what you're going to say. You don't have a good case as to why you're going to get a raise. You didn't sleep well enough last night. Possibly you got nervous last night and decided to throw a couple of drinks back, and now you wonder if you still smell like yesterday's drinks. Possibly this morning you came in late and someone may have noticed. So these are all things that you want to make sure get clear on what's going on in your mind during this simple intention process. So when you fire the intention, you go into that state of mind, you let other stuff go. Anything irrelevant is irrelevant. If you release it, you let it go, you let yourself know these are lower priorities. You don't push them out of your mind with negative self-talk or I always do this, I always get so nervous, I always get so distracted. What you're doing then is this toxic loop of a thought about a thought, about a thought, about a thought, about a thought. And each thought gets more distorted, gets bigger, and you forget, you disconnect from the present involuntarily. You get overwhelmed by these emotions. You're no longer yourself. And so you're setting yourself up for underperformance. Okay? So, back to your desk. You at your desk, you check your level of readiness. You're like, okay, I've done my stuff, and I've rewarded myself for accomplishing each of these steps that I associate with success. So I've patted myself on the back. I've fueled my engine. I'm confident in my ability to take action as I wish. You say to yourself, I'm going to do it after lunch, or you set an intention so that each event that happens in the environment is an event that you had an intention for. You do what in that situation. The benefit of that is you can watch yourself when you freeze up and be like, ooh, an opportunity came up and I didn't do it. Okay? It's after lunch and I'm sitting here at my desk and I had told myself, I had promised myself, this is self-trust, self-love stuff. I had promised myself that after lunch, let me see who just came on. Hey Courtney, welcome to Asylum. Hey Carmen, welcome to Asylum. So basically, we're running through a scenario where, just to show an example of using your intentions, in this case it's intention to ask your boss for a raise. Okay? So what you're going to do is, starting from the desk, you check your level of preparedness. Did I do the things that I told myself I would have done? Am I at the right energetic state? Am I at the right emotional state of mind? Do I have the right ideas in my mind? Have I released other stuff? Okay? Am I intentional? Do I know, have I thought through my action plan for all the distractions that may show up? Okay? That's as prepared as you can get. All right? So now you're walking down the hall. Because you visualize walking down the hall a few times, you just pull up the memories of every other time you walk down the hall. If that part makes you nervous and your legs are wobbly, practice walking down the hall. I'm dead serious. This is how you break stuff down into small, achievable chunks that you reward yourself for. These are celebrating small wins that you hear people always talking about. Okay? So as you're walking down the hall, if it's a long hallway, if there's an elevator, If there are certain people you're going to run into, the whole way through, you know that your intention is to get that raise. As such, if you run into Patty from bookkeeping or someone from HR or a friend talking about last night's party or whatever, these are distractions. You become aware of what's irrelevant to what you're headed to do. And so you don't let those things break your momentum. And by not letting them break your momentum, you develop that confidence that when you set out to do something, you will accomplish it, because this becomes the way in which you operate in your core system despite all context. Okay? Walking down the hall, you run into a couple of people, and you imagine these things. Yeah, you run into such and such person. That person usually makes you feel like low on your self-esteem. And self-esteem, as I've mentioned in the last few videos, is one of the 3 things you need to be effective out here, to be making meaning. Check your self-esteem, and it vacillates from conversation to conversation. You turn on your TV in the morning, you watch the news, and there's some subliminals about your identity group, and that affects your energy, that affects your self-esteem. You tune into that. So, we're walking down the hall, you notice these different things that come up. Whether it's you don't have your best shoes on, whether you're at lunch you got some stuff on your tie, so it's not a good day to, you should have switched into your backup tie. You go back to your desk. It's just the whole way through you got this pragmatic tunnel vision that serves you to get to the goal. Okay? Now, when you've been rehearsing this process and you know your ideal outcome, the shortest path to it, then you also know the anticipated distractions, and you're prepared for those. Let's see. I can't see who just came on. Someone else is joining. Hey, Connie. Welcome to Asylum. Thanks for joining. Okay, so the clarity comes from the fact that you keep going back to that one representation in your mind. You keep going back. You pull into your consciousness, into your working memory, the thing that you want. You stay focused on it. Okay? Now, when you're walking down the hall, all the different things that happen that are unrelated to it, they're going to result in one of 2 things that break your momentum. And these are softer emotions. When you actually start thinking with and noticing these emotions, then you're able to make smaller corrections in your course that early, before all the negative energy of overwhelm, raw anxiety, anger, defeat, negative self-talk, jealousy, all these emotions, when you turn your focus so that you're dealing with the smaller, finer grain emotions, you're able to create these tiny circuits, skill circuits in your mind that are so efficient and so in alignment with your intentions that you just, when it's time to execute, you execute. Okay? Walking down the hall. So you remember the desired outcome. The desired outcome is that raise. You remember that you just earlier thought about why you want the raise, what you're going to do with it, who your most meaningful people, who you're going to celebrate with. You just, all the things to get you in the state of mind of experiencing what the raise is like. So along the way, everything that shows up, you at some point, because these are things that you've dealt with before, you pull up the memory to deal with it. Whether it's tell a person you'll talk to them later, remind people you're on your way to somewhere, and you tell yourself, I'm on my way to get my raise. Not I'm on my way to talk to the boss. I'm on my way to get my raise. Okay? And as such, it's an urgent situation. If there's an elevator, when you get to the elevator, on the elevator, you reward yourself. I made it past the elevator. Look at me. I'm doing it. Because these are small micro skills that at some point, you had to learn how to do. So reward yourself for firing these circuits so that yourself feels heard, your system feels understood, and you continue to gain an increased sense of self-efficacy because you're framing the situation in your way. Okay? You're not feeling disempowered like the environment is in charge. Okay? Now, you get off the elevator. You push the button in the elevator. Other people come on the elevator. You might run into someone who has a different conversation. Someone brings up something. Someone jokes about something. Whatever. You're pretty goal-directed. This is some stuff you want to get done. So you're like, hey, you have the cordial conversations, but you also make sure you notice. I use my breathing, and you stay connected in your body. You stay connected in the present. You stay in that state of gathering power instead of losing power. If someone comes up and says something that reminds you of something, if your phone rings on the way there, that it's an upsetting message. Really, if my phone rings on the way to something, I will glance and see who it is. And most of the people in my inner circle know when I'm about to go get something, not to get in the way. So my people know that I'm not sure who just came on. Welcome to Asylum. Thanks for joining. Is it Michelle? Hey, Michelle. I see you. I saw the small picture and I couldn't tell who it was until I had the word. So it's basically it's a pragmatic tunnel vision, because you only see what you foreground in your consciousness, and you practice this. You practice only seeing the things related to the task and recognizing everything else as irrelevant. Now, this is the true focus. The true focus is you lock in on one intention. The intention has other sub-intentions in it, and each sub-intention has a cue. You can chain them so that sometimes it's like these are all if-then statements. Your brain runs them automatically if you practice them and you chain them. If Fred runs into me, then I will let him know we'll talk later, because I'm on my way to get my raise. You may not want to tell Fred all those details, but you have a why in your mind. You connect to the why, you connect to the vision, and you get to walking and you get to executing. And along the way, you make sure you keep track of how you're feeling and how that's affecting the degree of power you show up at your boss's door with. You get to the door. You have been thinking the whole time you're walking up there. You know your strengths. You know the wins you've helped the company have. You are aware of your weaknesses. You are aware of the last mess ups that you had that he may bring up or she may bring up. And so when they come up, when they bring it up, you're not like, oh God, I'm insulted. No, you know your weaknesses. You know the last times you dropped the ball, and you know how long ago they were, and you know how much you think that should weigh. You've already had these discussions in your mind as part of your preparedness process. Part of being present is you're less triggerable. Is that Doc Kelly? I think that looks like Doc Kelly. I don't see the name yet, but I think so. Hey, Dr. Kelly, welcome to Asylum. So you've gone through this process. You're all the way down the hallway. You're at your boss's door. The intention that you set was to get this raise. Okay? You open the door. You step inside. You imagine yourself sitting in the chair. Okay? So when you get to the boss's office, and let's say that chair has a bunch of junk in it, and you can't sit in it. Maybe you have a messy boss. Okay? So you can't sit in the chair. You sit in another chair. You go ahead and notice that little bit of your plan went off, and you notice the level of frustration, how much it drains you. Because in some cases, and this is subtle, in some cases you may be like, okay, I intended to have face-to-face contact with them, and now you're sitting at a little side chair and at an angle that's uncomfortable. All these things come into play during execution, and you want to be present enough to be aware of it and to adapt to it and to release the impact it's having on you. The purpose is to have an internal locus of control, an internal locus of value, so that these environmental things pop up, but that you don't automatically spiral into your head about them, into all this different meaning that stifles you of your confidence and your courage. The confidence comes from knowing that when these true dangers, these are dangers to your goal now, these things are threatening your goal, that when these dangers come up, you can assess the level of danger, you can return to the priority, and you can keep the model of the reality that you want to create in mind. Okay? The courage aspect kicks in when thoughts come into your mind that make you afraid, things about yourself that are your true weak points. And you continue to push forward by taking a breath, returning to a calm state of mind, and retrieving the memories that are relevant to your desired outcome. Okay? So this is tiny, tiny, tiny little Lego pieces of thought that you chain together to get your outcome. Okay? The skill is in staying focused on the intention, letting the vision power you, keeping connected to the higher purpose, and allowing the environment to provide the cues as to what the how is going to be. Okay? In the last video, I discussed that there's a time to focus on the how. The time to focus on the how is during implementation. And by focusing, I mean pulling the right memory into mind. Okay? Now, so you're in the office. Various things could happen, and you thought through these scenarios a little bit, but you didn't get emotionally overwhelmed by thinking about them. A lot of times, if we think about a certain thing and the vividness of thinking about it in the first person causes like us to go through all the emotions. As I mentioned in the last video, one thing you can do. Hey David, welcome to Asylum. Thanks for joining. Hey, it's Boone. Welcome to Asylum. Thanks for joining. So, what you're doing is by returning your focus to your vision, the desired outcome, you're pulling up that image, that memory, that truth, that your belief, that understanding, that model of reality. You're pulling that one forward, and it's the one where you have your desired outcome. You're creating a reality in which you win, and you're not distracted by the parallel realities, and you gain the confidence of being able to do that. Like I said earlier, you gain the courage of the micro fears that come up on the way to the real goal, the fears that are relevant, the fears that actually point to a danger. You gain the practice of reducing the gap between the danger and the fear. That's that distortion gap. You calm down enough so that even if it's dangerous, you know the truth of the danger, you know your skill, you know whether it's an opportunity to learn, you know whether it's really a fight-flight situation where you need to get up out of there or you need to defeat an inevitable adversary. Okay? So now, sitting in the room with your boss discussing this raise. Had a couple of new people join me, so I just want to make sure I'm catching you guys when you come in. Welcome to Asylum. I don't see who has just joined us, but welcome to Asylum. So you're sitting there talking to your boss about the raise. You got to think through what a raise conversation is like. So how do you do that? Well, hopefully part of your preparing process is talking to other people who have asked your boss for a raise, and they'll tell you what their process was. Whether he brought up performance, whether he pulled up numbers, whether he's a numbers guy, whether he's prone to character attacks, in which case you prepare for a character attack, whether he's prone to, he's a person that like makes you feel self-conscious about your clothes, etc. We're dealing with reality here. So you're dealing with people's idiosyncrasies and personalities, and that has nothing to do with you getting your desired outcome. Let them be who they are. You're not going to sit there and try to change someone. You're not going to judge someone. You're going to walk away from the situation with what you desired, because you came in prepared, you came in clear, you came in powerful, you stayed present, and you maneuvered through the process. Okay? And the whole way up to it, you kept refueling yourself. You kept maintaining your self-esteem, which is the third leg of the stool. You kept maintaining your self-esteem the whole way to be clear about who you are, how powerful you are, how present to remain, how confident you feel, and you remind yourself, I'm feeling that confidence from all these little wins. I'm feeling that clarity because I have a well-defined vision. Okay? And the last thing I had mentioned was the importance of measuring power along the way. So, measuring progress along the way. Now, if you've broken your vision down into a set of intentions that you have and sometimes they're intentions in a specific order. So you're like, when I'm done with this, then I'll do this. When I'm done with this, then I'll do this. And the whole time, because I know these are connected to my goal, I will feel good. And the whole time, I'm also aware that if I change the goal, I can release these intentions for now. If you abort mission, if on the way to your boss's office, you happen to get a text message that a project you're working on just went really bad, this would not be the time. Abort mission. So you don't get in your feelings about it. You don't get overwhelmed with the emotions that trap you in your head. You stay connected to the reality. Strategically, in this moment, I will choose not to go to get the raise. Okay, so not to ask for the raise. When will I ask for the raise? I will ask for the raise after I make a stellar performance at this crisis, this fire that just happened. Now, with me, when after I transitioned from medicine into entrepreneurship, I joined a software startup, and that meant we used to have what we called software code fires, which meant a piece of software that you had released out into the wild. Usually, at one point, I was building software for casinos, so that meant that thousands of casinos were using a piece of software at any point in time was using software that I had written and released in the wild. Which meant in any time my phone could go off, and it could be somewhere in Tennessee, which was where a lot of our software, somewhere in Tennessee, not just a slot machine went down, but the entire system went down because a lot of the software I wrote was connected to a lot of that. So when you have a situation like that come up, all the way to the boss's office, you want to be checking your phone to make sure that everything you think is working is working. You don't want any surprises. Okay, that's part of the preparedness process. So you walk in, You have the conversation. The whole time you're in the conversation, you remain intentional. Intentional means you have your desired outcome in mind and you remain focused on it. So that creates a filter in your mind, a filter where everything you hear, if it doesn't have anything to do with walking towards getting that raise that you went in the office to get, it's irrelevant. Okay? Any character slights, you're like, okay, he said such and such, and it felt in my chest like he was talking about my mama, and I kind of want to punch him a little bit. That's not going to contribute to your raise. Okay? So if the person is trying to tell you to improve your work, but they grew up in and matriculated in an environment where they communicate in insults, that's not your problem. Your goal is to get the raise, and as such, you want your system filtered where no matter what they say, you're still present, you're still focused, you're still intentional, you're still deliberate, you're still on your path to what you want. You're still focused. That's where the confidence comes from the ability to, no matter what is happening out there, to maintain the state of clarity, maintain that sense of measuring my progress, and that's what's managing your emotions. I made it down the hallway. I got out of my chair. I had the lunch like I planned. I am 10 steps into my plan. There's no stopping me now. It's just a matter of this dude saying yes. So if dude is in his feelings, or I don't want to be gender funny about if your boss is in his or her feelings, in their feelings, that's not your problem. You still want to reconnect to the why. The feeling you want to have through the whole process is the feeling of having won, because the fact that you have that positive feeling lets you know that you have activated a version of the goal that has your desired outcome, a version where you're winning. That means you've eliminated fear, and in a lot of the schools of thinking, they say this is choosing love over fear. You're thinking about something you love and you want. Okay? So, make sure I'm going through the structure right. So now you're in this office, and this last part is all about feedback, because when you're executing, you release from your mind any type of emotions that go with, well, if this happens, what if this happens? None of that is relevant, and pulling it into your mind decreases your likelihood of success. And as such, you continue to focus on your desired outcome, and the only cues you allow into your conscious mind are the cues relevant to either one of the things that you knew could go wrong going wrong, and then you pull up your focus, you manage your frustration, you manage your disappointment, or a new surprise thing. And the surprise thing, you don't have an intention set for that yet, but this is where you learn the lesson on the way. They say you fail or you learn. You're like, oh, I didn't expect that. What am I going to do? And it may be that this time you don't have anything you're going to do, but you remember that thing happened, and you don't distort it in your mind. You don't blow it out of proportion. You don't say, I'm a terrible person. I suck at this. This is why I always fail. I always do this. None of that is relevant. You notice the things that you didn't expect, and guess what? Next time, you're going to have an intention for it. If I get in my boss's office and he rudely dismisses me, or he redirects the conversation towards other stuff, or he has something else on his mind, or he drops a new project on my lap. These are all things that may happen. You're prepared for all of them. None of them affect your state of mind. Okay? Even if you decide to abort mission, you don't go back in there feeling defeated or whatever. You just know that you've intentionally and strategically decided to choose a better time to execute. Okay? And as such, you walk away from the experience, and you will remember the experience with a sense of confidence and power, and you'll be able to pull that memory back up. When we put a memory away with negative emotions, we store and encode that memory with a sense of disempowerment. So we don't even want to pull that memory back up, because when you pull a memory up and you step into it, you pull up the emotions associated with that event, that state of mind. It's like when you think about something stupid someone did and you get angry all over again. Same thing happens on the positive side. It's just that we often don't get calm enough and confident and clear and prepared and rehearsed enough in the desired outcome, so that when we're headed towards it, we can give ourselves these little positive feelings that that are subtle, small, tiny micro wins. This is how you become more task-focused than outcome-focused. This goes back to Carol Dweck's work on mindset, where she talks about a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. A fixed mindset, you're focused on the outcome, you're focused on how you look, You're focused on what people will think. You're focused on being kicked out of the tribe. You're focused on what the failure means to you. You bind your job and the outcome to your identity because you imagine that you'll have a higher status in your social circles with this more income. Just none of that is relevant to getting the outcome in the moment. The only thing that's relevant is pulling into your mind a crisp, clear, simple model of execution. Okay? Now, don't worry, because this way of approaching things, you have, there's two selves. There's an experiencing self and a remembering self. So the experiencing self really thrives when you disconnect from all the other stuff outside of context. The experiencing self, if you make it an intentional task-focused self, then on the other side of the event, you'll look back at the whole event and you'll be like, yo, look at how I did it. The remembering self can be a future self that is empowering instead of a judgmental self. Okay? That takes some training as well. So all these little pieces, these are tiny little behavioral scripts that when you start realizing that this is how your brain works, when you start connecting to the present, when you start realizing that your power actually goes into shifting your mind over, it's called task switching. It costs a lot of energy. It's one of our most costly processes. It goes into pulling into your mind what it is you want to do. It goes into recognizing, paying attention in the moment. How am I feeling? Okay, and then turning back to the task. So one of the things I read that's super helpful is when you're driving, you look at the road, you occasionally check the dashboard. Okay, the dashboard is all the metrics of things that you know that could go wrong. I could get a speeding ticket. I could run out of gas. Check engine light may come on. But if you're staring at those things, I promise you're not going to end up where you want to go. You want to keep your eyes on the vision. You want to keep your eyes on the desired outcome. You want to, occasionally, if you're driving somewhere, you may notice some places you've been before. You may see a new place that on the way back to celebrate, you want to grab a little bit of lunch from or whatever. But when you're executing intentions, there are two things in mind. When I see this, then I'm going to do this. Okay? Now, another thing about intentions is you want to make sure that you have a set of things to let you know when you're done with an intention. This is the specificity in designing a goal. You say, you do this with play as well, and you practice it with play, and you'll see how fascinatingly powerful it feels. You say to yourself, you set a time or an amount of effort or something to let you know when to quit, and you practice it over and over again. So one of the things would be, if you're going to play video games and you can get lost in it, you can say, I'm going to practice for an hour. And at the end of that hour, I'm going to play for an hour. At the end of that hour, I will get up and stop playing. And I will feel good about it. You focus not on, I was so good at the game, I was in a good part. You focus instead on the task switching. You focus all your attention on, okay, this was the intention. It was to play the game. Look, I've succeeded the intention. If I stop it where I said I would, and this is integrity, this is setting up a relationship with yourself where yourself trusts you to be able to switch these files, these representations in your working memory. You put away you say to yourself, okay, let's transition from playing this game in an empowered way. I said I would play for an hour. Apparently an hour is enough for me to enjoy. I got into it just right. I'm going to put that file away. Return to breathing. Return to center. What did I tell myself I would do next? And then there's a reward in being present. There's a power in seeing yourself, like, watching the body. Some people say, your soul, your psyche lives in the body, and the extent to which you're connected to your body. And there's two aspects to connectedness: feeling the truth, feeling your reactions, whether your stomach is tight, whether you're hungry, whether you're asleep, whether you're tired, tuning into all these things and being honest with it. You practice it in good times. You're like, I'm really enjoying this game. This game, has me feeling compulsive. Okay, I'm going to manage that emotion, return to breathing. What I told myself would be the next step is then I would get up and mow the lawn, then I would get up and do these dishes, then I would get up and do yoga, whatever. The point is that you're focusing on these abstract transferable skills. These are your intentions. What do I do when the environment does this? And again, you grow, and I said confidence, courage, and clarity. The clarity is from not multitasking. Multitasking is really multi-threading, if you want to use software language. It means I'm going to do this, then I'm going to do this, then I'm going to do this, then I'm going to do this. And it looks like you're doing two things, but you're doing two things at half the efficiency, and you're losing all your energy to the task switching cost, which is the cost it takes to pull into your working memory, into your conscious present experience, set a schema, mental models, and scripts, behaviors that have to do with the context. It means you're not present. You're flipping back and forth, trying to decide what the situation is. You may be flipping back and forth between self-doubt. Am I capable? What story am I going to tell on the other side of this? Am I going to win? Am I going to lose? Am I afraid? Am I calm? You're pulling these files up, and each file is draining energy. And really, when you return to that final file of what to do, energetically you're drained, your confidence is down a little bit, and this is why you want that ritual, the ritual that you've rehearsed, and every step along the ritual, you want to reward yourself to the point where your mind does these steps unconsciously in some cases, and because you automatically, your brain is super fast, and anything you practice consciously, you're able to do unconsciously. So having rehearsed those steps, you know, as you're walking down the hall, you're just like, why do I feel good? Because subconsciously you rewarded yourself. Good job, good job, good job. I'm getting closer. You're measuring progress. Okay? Now, I use the example of asking a boss for a raise because that's super practical, it's visceral, and it evokes a certain amount of fear. But remember the importance of transferable skills. Intentions allow you to hop up levels of abstraction and pull all these scripts that you've created and break them into pieces, because now you're able to think about them more deliberately. You have more power over these thoughts. They don't make you feel compulsive. They don't make you overly emotional where you just want to stop thinking about them. You don't suppress memories to the point of developing a repression habit. Okay? I want to make sure I covered everything. So we talked briefly about manifesting, how manifesting is getting to the point where at the right time, an environmental cue triggers an automatic action because you recognize the opportunity. Manifesting on a bigger level is when you see several things happen back to back the way that you rehearsed it, and you know that each of these things is connected to your desired outcome, which is in turn connected to your higher purpose, your why, which is at a higher level connected to your larger story. Okay? As such, you develop an abundance mindset. You realize that when you get clear about your intentions, the environment provides plenty of opportunities, not just to try, but to fail and to learn how to develop a confidence about being able to get back up from adversity. And that's the confidence, that confidence and courage combination is what eventually you start to interpret inside your mind as courage, confidence, self-efficacy, a sense of purpose, a connectedness to your truth, a trust to yourself, and then everything you do by becoming more intentional becomes an act of self-care, because you're not doing it for anyone else. You're not doing it to see what people think. You're not doing it for material gain. And even if it is for material gain, it's material gain that is meaningful because you've connected it to your higher purpose. Okay? Let's see. I wanted to talk about self-transcendence and how intentions allow you to connect to the truth of yourself. And once you've connected to the truth of yourself, there's a lot of studies that say self-acceptance allows for self-love, that allows you to not go into identity threat being triggered by people causing self-doubt. And by not being knocked into that energetic state, you're not in that tense, you're not using all your energy in your body being tense, defensive. Your alert system is not fear-focused. Instead, it's goal and vision-focused. You're connected. You know you're walking into your purpose. You gain that momentum where you're doing you. You're being natural. You're just walking through the process as you practice it, as you believe it should be done, in integrity, in truth. And that's how you end up as powerful as can be. Okay? So we talked about, intuition, presence, power, measuring progress, how to manifest, connecting the truth, and another thing is sunk cost. I wanted to hit that real quick. Sunk cost is when you get to where you're noticing these little micro steps that you've intended as part of the chain of events towards getting your vision, then you're less likely to throw away the baby with the bathwater, because you're like, I've done all these different things, that are on my way to my vision, I'm not gonna lose my temper and throw all these things away. I'm less inclined to chicken out and start all over because look at all these steps that I've done successfully. I am on my way to victory. And as a lot of you know, I used to design video games in virtual worlds. That's what I did with my psychiatry training. And I mean, I had been developing software since I was like 9, so it wasn't like a magical leap. It was just a matter of even during med school, I was practicing software. But one thing in software is we're precise about managing. In video games, we're precise about managing people's emotional state. A person will stop playing your video game if while playing the game the frustration is too high, or the disappointment factor, and that may be like where they win something and the reward is nowhere near as big. For example, in Rock Band, I remember there was a short playlist, and this was years back, but this impacted me to the point where I still remember. The short playlist, when you completed that short challenge in Rock Band, the original Rock Band, there was all kind of fanfare. And then they had a 58-song playlist. And my family completed the 58-song playlist, and there was no magic. It was just like, congratulations and a little something. That disappointment results. Is that Barbara? I think that's Barbara. I don't see the name yet. Hey, Claire, good to see you. It's been a while. Welcome to Asylum. Michelle says, no damn raise this week, right? So the way you deal with disappointment also affects how powerful you feel in the moment, because your brain is a prediction engine. If the whole time you are anticipating the disappointment, anytime you're anticipating a negative outcome, you're so connected to the outcome. This is how they say release the outcome. This is the detachment process. You don't want to get so over involved with the win that when it doesn't happen, you devastate yourself. You want to be like, oh, okay, but guess what? I've practiced all the steps up to it, so I'm at some point going to reuse all those skills. And even in the face of a win, I manage disappointment effectively where my sense of self does not get damaged because I'm more intentional than that. Okay, I still am who I am. I still executed all these steps. The outcome is just what the best the outcome could be, because I was as prepared as could be. I was as clear and in integrity as could be. Or maybe I wasn't. Maybe that's what you need to be measuring, right? So yeah, I think I've covered everything. So again, I have a free course, 7-day course called Inspiration, Making Breathing Meaningful. You can get to that by going to MannySt.Victor.com/asylum awaits. So Manny St. Victor is MannyStVictorMD.com /asylum ASYLUM awaits AWAITS. And a 7-day course that I've created where it's a combination of breathing meditation, focusing on organizing your simplest breathing circuits so that you notice when you get distracted, you notice when emotions kick in at a subtler level before it becomes an emotional overwhelm, and so that you can return your focus to your breathing. And from the breathing, you are able to, instead of going into amygdala hijack, which is like reactive mode, caught in a story that knocks you out of present, you're able to, you micro practice returning to the breathing, and from the breathing, reconnecting to your purpose, reconnecting to your why, reconnecting to your values. And that's where the clarity comes from. So that's a 1-week course. Is that Latoya? Hey, Latoya, welcome to Asylum. Thanks for joining me. So by the free course, 7-day course I put together, I've combined it with, when I was learning mindfulness meditation and the various different types of meditation, as well as when I was learning hypnosis, what I came to find is that there are more effective ways to reach that alpha brain waves, and even to drop deeper into this relaxed parasympathetic receptor state where you can give yourself these suggestions and you can act on the truth as opposed to distorted, amplified stuff. So, in this course, I've also added elements of music that I've written and composed that you use. And I work well when instead of trying to silence my mind, I fill my mind with deep, complex patterns that don't result in a negative emotion state. And so that takes up, I have a lot of working memory apparently. I'm not bragging, I'm just saying it's a good or a bad thing. A lot of times, a lot of working memory results in ADD because you can pull up so much more and then you're reactive to a lot of little pieces. Okay, and that's if you buy into the ADD label and diagnosis categorization system. So what I tend to find more useful than the mindfulness approach of focusing on one thing and going into silence was an approach in which I listen to music that doesn't already have a previous emotional association, and as such, I'm able to stay present. And so when I put together the 7-day course, one of the things I did was over the last few weeks, I created a playlist. It's 8 hours of music to help you get into the right state of mind. Each song will trigger you into a different state of mind, and since none of them, they're all instrumental, so they're all ambient music, you'll come to realize that if you focus on the breathing and return to the breathing and notice the emotions that are evoked, these are entirely emotions that are coming from within, and as such, it's an opportunity to practice making meaning by choosing the intentions that go with that emotion, choosing the actions that go from the inner cue. That's one thing that I mentioned a little bit that I want to underscore. Throughout the whole process, and the example we used today was the example of going to your boss to get a raise or having a hard conversation is really what it was. Is that Mia? I see the picture, but I don't see the name yet. So I think that is Mia. Welcome to Asylum, Mia. So really, whatever it is you want to accomplish, you want to develop that intentionality. With the intentionality, you also want to pull up positive emotions. You want to make sure that your mind is focused on the positive outcome, what it will feel like, what it will smell like, taste like, sound like, who will be there with you. You want to be able to basically first person subjective walk through your vision so many times that it creates this emotion in you where you're able to now capture that emotion, remember that emotion, go back, break, once you've gotten that emotion, that burning desire, to use the Napoleon Hill models, get honest on where you are now, let your unconscious mind come up with the steps between here and there, and I talked about this in way more detail in the prior video, I think video 4, this is 5, 4 comes before 5, right? So by getting that clarity, this is how you develop that internal locus of control. By reconnecting to the breathing, that's how you start to create meaning in the outside world that is mapped to the feelings you have and feels true, feels authentic, feels you, feels like you're walking in your purpose, feels like when you're faced with different challenges that you're able to reclaim control, regain that internal locus of control, retrieve, calm your heart rate, retrieve the energy that's going to different body parts associated with tenseness and whatever, all of which are interfering with your ability to show up in the moment, execute, and manifest at multiple levels, seeing what you have in your mind come forward at the right time so that you can enact based on the opportunities, and you start to see yourself manifest your authentic self, this self-actualization. You start to understand and believe and trust yourself to be someone that in the moment will, instead of being distracted by expectations and overwhelmed automatic emotions that control what you think about, you become someone who is in control of your mind and is able to execute based on the intention you set and measure progress based on the actions along the way. And that's where confidence, courage, and clarity through being present comes up. All right? That's it. Hope you enjoyed this. Dr. Manning, thanks for joining me in Asylum. I'm out.